Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to another episode of the Event Hustler Show. We are coming to you a little bit later than usual. We're here at 3 p.m. Eastern time instead of our usual 1:30, but all for good reason because we have a true Event Hustler guest with us today, Allie Magyar from Hubb. Allie is currently on the road at an airport, true Event Hustler style, going from one place to another. I remember these days. I feel like it's been over a year for me that I've been on an airplane, but all event hustlers know what this is like. So, Allie, thank you so much for joining us in the midst of everything that you have going on. So excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I am really excited to be here. And yes, I am definitely, my flights got canceled, moved around, and I thought, oh no, because this is exactly what I want to be doing, is talking to our audience, because so much is changing in our world. And to me, that is just so incredibly exciting. So I'm super passionate about today's topics and really excited to explore and dive deeper with you.
Yeah, likewise. So I do see we already have some live watchers. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So if you have some questions for Allie or you want to talk about, today we're really going to talk about hybrid. Hubb has just come off of their, I think, second Untethered event. Is that correct? And it was all about hybrid, which I know is a very popular topic. And so we're going to talk about that. Anything you guys want to know, comments, questions, put them where you're watching. We'd love to have you part of this conversation as well. But Allie, Hubb has been around for many years. One of the things I have said always that I love about it is that it was started by you, a meeting planner who kind of understood what a lot of the challenges meeting planners are facing and use technology to solve that, which is a really unique thing. There are a lot of meeting planners who understand the technology, who understand the problems, but really wouldn't know how to solve it from a tech standpoint. That's a whole nother skill set. And of course, there are many tech companies who have no idea what we're really dealing with on the event planning side, but they happen to see a market that they can sell to. So I would love to learn a little bit more about you and about Hubb kind of before we dive into the hybrid. I see we already have one of your favorite fans here, Michael, says he's been a Hubb user as a content management system. Great tool. So really excited to have you kind of dive in and tell people a little more in case they're not as familiar with you and Hubb.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, yes, I have been in the meetings industry my entire life since I was 18 years old. So I actually, I don't talk about this a lot, but I actually started my career with trade show production. So I was a car girl. I was a street racer. And so I decided to throw car shows at first. And I grew one show to two shows to 4 to 10 around the country between the time I was 18 and 24, and really learned what it meant to be a hustler in events and how to create an environment for people. And so as I went into corporate events, that was the same thing, but fax machines were technology back then. So, fax isn't exactly the world's greatest tech or mail. And so as a part of that, I looked at ways of taking my team of meeting planners. We were planning, corporate high-tech events, and I wanted to find ways to help them scale what they were doing, because we were using spreadsheets and email and, pulling 4-hour days and nights. And Liz, you look a little frozen. Are you still there?
I can hear you fine. I think you might just be, I'm definitely still here. Oh, we may have lost her for a second here.
Let's try this again.
Can you hear me okay? Of course, we were chatting with each other for a good 20 minutes prior to going live with no problem.
Oh, Liz, I am so sorry about this. If my flights hadn't been...
Oh, we lost her. All right. I know that we have some of you watching live. This is just what happens. We all know this is the Event Hustler life. I myself have done this many, many times. We're going to give Allie just a few seconds to jump back on if she can. If not, we will suspend. So in the meantime, if you are watching, please let me know where you're watching from, who you are. If you are watching on Facebook, please go to streamyard.com/Facebook and just give me access to see your picture and name. That way I know who is commenting. But just let me know who you are, what brings you here today. As I mentioned, Allie and Hubb just finished wrapping this amazing Untethered event, and I was able to facilitate one of the conversations, but they had these circles, these great roundtables of leading event professionals all around the industry to really chat about what hybrid is going to look like. I learned a lot, and Allie is back to share some with us too. Can you hear me now, Allie?
I sure can. I got off of the airport Wi-Fi and just joined from my phone, and hopefully that's going to be a lot better on 5G. So, needing to adapt.
It does sound great, actually. It just might not be so comfortable for your hand.
Yeah, that's okay. I got this. So I apologize for dropping off, but I'm not sure, Liz, could you hear anything about my introduction in terms of?
Yes, we did. Okay. I heard everything.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Well, I'm excited to be here with you because I think over the years, I also have admired everything that you've done and the hustling that you've done and the education that you've brought to our industry. So every time we get on the phone, I think we just have idea after idea. So excited to be here together with you.
Yeah, so I was just talking about the Untethered event that you guys just had, where there were these amazing circles and people were talking about hybrid. And I know that's such a hot topic these days. Everyone wants to talk about that. What were some of your biggest takeaways? I mean, I know you got to participate in a lot of these really in-depth conversations. And, the whole concept was really think outside the box instead of just planning what everyone else is talking about. What are the challenges that we see? Who are we designing these events for? And what are some of the best practices? So what were some of the things just for you personally that you really walked away thinking, we have to talk more about this?
Yeah, I think number one for me, it was how powerful it is when we come together with other groups of people to solve real world problems, and how it sparks our brain in a completely different way. I mean, I can be sitting in a room and thinking, okay, how do I do hybrid? Okay, I've got a plan. As meeting planners, we sort of put the steps in play and we say, okay, this is the process we're going to take. But oftentimes that's with a lot of guardrails, right? It's our past experience of what we've always known from in person. It's sort of, what are our executives going to think? Like, what's the budget? There's a lot of rules behind how we think about planning and executing when it's ourselves or even with our teams. And one of the things I valued so much at Untethered was we tried to create an environment that said, we're going to solve problems. It's not just, hey, the world of hybrid is here. Like, what does that mean to us? It's let's give, and Megan from Google was so incredible of like, let's give provocations. Like, let's actually put a problem out there, because as meeting planners, that's what we do best, is solve right away, regardless of how tough it is. And so for me, it was just the power of coming together to co-create and put our minds in a completely different line of thinking to be able to say, yes, Liz, that's incredible. And you just build on that over time. And as I think about where the world is going right now, I mean, we're all on Zoom fatigue. So if it was just one person sitting here and talking for an hour, you sort of zone out. But if we get everyone participating in the chat, if you and I are bantering back and forth, we can learn so much from each other. And that, to me, is the way of hybrid in the future, is the community-based learning where we're all learning from each other and all co-creating together. And Untethered was just a really fun way of doing that and getting our minds into a completely different mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what we've been talking about pretty much on every episode for some reason about Clubhouse and how people can kind of like start these conversations about anything that they want. And typically, if you look at the topics, they are about what they would perceive as a challenge. It's something that they want to figure out. And then you can have anybody jump into the room and jump up on stage and share ideas. And it's not really, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily about the client has approved it, we have the perfect budget. Those limiting factors sometimes really limit our creativity. One of the things that you mentioned, Megan Henshaw from Google, one of the things she was talking about in one of the groups that I was part of was this idea of teenagers and younger people really having this super interest in like kind of like vicarious content watching. Like, I know my nephews were here the other day watching YouTube. They were just watching all this stuff, which was other people doing things. It wasn't them playing video games. They were watching other kids play video games. And I'm like, why would you be doing this when you could you have the video game right in front of you? You're using your Xbox to watch this content. But she brought up that this is definitely a way that people are enjoying watching content, and what that might look like for, our future attendees, or even just things that we could be doing now to kind of mix up that hybrid experience.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
to me, it's back to that audience journey of understanding the different personas. And part of the way I think about meetings and events right now is just looking at the world in general. Like, look at the way that our kids are being educated when they're not in school. Look at the
Yeah.
way, like, I don't know if you've done Jackbox with your friends and played online games, all from your own homes. Like, how we're interacting as a world is so different. And so that is going to change human behavior. And therefore, it's going to change the experiential elements that will actually draw people in together. And as we also think about, meetings and events, the type A personality like me is fine to be like, oh, hey, what's going on? And we're social and we're on the floor and we're sort of making things move and shake. But even myself, I find after a year in quarantine, there's a concept of a social battery. And your battery runs out so much more quickly than it used to because we're used to that quiet time now. We're used to having technology that we turn on or off when we want to. And as we transition more into this hybrid world, I think we have to be very conscious of people's social batteries and create the right type of content and the right environments that really allows us to be able to succeed. And that's just, as you look at the world, you see people starting to do those things. So there's so much that I think we have to rise up about 5 levels from where we normally are to
Yeah.
just look at human behavior, like how it is that we're participating in the world and what do we learn from that and how do we segment our audiences, because I swear, if you try to make me watch TikTok, my brain explodes. But yet, if that's our audience and their attention spans are that short, how are we creating the right type of content experiences that allows them the flexibility to learn how they want to?
Yeah, I mean, I know as an introvert myself, I'm super excited that, the last year has caused people to think about people's interest in different engagement styles and levels. The most extroverted people are now saying like, okay, I have a limit on social interaction. You realize, I think, when you're so disconnected from people, how much you need it, but at the same time, how much you've enjoyed all these other things that have happened. This idea that people can choose their engagement level when they're attending a virtual event. They have 700 other tabs open. And I'm realizing something I've really been thinking about since Untethered, and I don't remember exactly why it came up, but something I've really been thinking about is that such a bad thing? Does that
Right.
mean that we've planned a horrible event?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe that's like the
Yeah.
perfect way people want to access content these days.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us not to say, this is how I measured myself pre-COVID, and so this is how success looks. We need to think about if the goal is to educate people or to get across certain brand messages, why does it matter if they're consuming it at 9 a.m. on the day when it's happening? What really matters is what percentage of the registrants logged in and watched that video. How long did they watch that video for? Did they take an action from that video? And there's your KPIs and your ROI. Let's use every acronym in the book. But, that's where you can actually see value. And I think we have to change our mindset to say, everything is an option right now. Like, even for me, I'm used to working, like, I'm a workaholic and I try really hard to have balance. But there are days where I'm working from home where I'm like, my brain is completely stopped. I'm going to go do laundry and I'm going to lay in my backyard and stare at the trees. And then I'm going to come back and I might work at 7 o'clock at night. Does that mean that I'm less productive? No. But does it mean that I'm starting to choose how I live my life and I view my life as one life, not work and then home? And so we have to think about the human behavior of that to go into our events to say, it really doesn't matter if they have 700 tabs open. They're going to tell us what is most important to them, and we can
Yeah.
learn from that and then create more value, which then will create engagement.
Yeah, and I think the more that content becomes available in all these different formats and pre-recorded and available after it's been live and all these different ways to access the same content, then events become, to me, much more about what I think they've always been about, which is the people. But I think so many events have been focused on the huge splashy keynote speakers to drive the
Right.
attendance. And I think a lot of event organizers have missed the fact that most people are attending because their friends are attending or the people they want to meet are attending. It's not so much about 17 hours of content packed into an 8-hour day.
Right.
I think some of my best event experiences have been outside the content room, like whatever's happening content wise.
Yeah. And to me, the future of hybrid, as I think through this, I actually view content as much better delivered online because of the fact that I want to be in my own comfortable environment. I want to have a headset on. If I'm really trying to focus, I want to be able to take notes, have a, power to my laptop, have, hardwired internet connection. I can look something up if it's helping me to understand the concepts. I don't want to be in a physical breakout room in a super uncomfortable chair and a super cold convention center where I'm worried about the person next to me coughing and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever else is going on. Like I can learn so much better when I'm focused and in my own environment of my own choosing. And really, events have always stuck around because of human connection. So, you know, as I think about the future of where we're going, I think my belief is that we're going to see a lot more of education and content still being delivered online. And the focus in those in-person elements are going to be on human connection. It's going to be on experience, things that we can't replicate very well online as hard as we try. And, you know, there's just an interesting thought process in terms of, well, then what does in-person actually turn into? And how do you drive business value as a part of in-person? Because, you know, we also want to learn from everyone else in the room in terms of the breakouts and the education and everything that's happening there too.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is so powerful and important, but it's not necessarily like the main marketing attraction. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. But what does all of this mean for you, you know, and for Hubb? Because you know, I can only imagine being involved in a tech company over the past year, watching these companies get tons of funding and constantly working around the clock, trying to innovate and rethink things. I mean, Untethered, I'm sure, was a great brain exercise for you, but I would imagine there's got to be some just product research, right? That you're trying to say, where are we taking this product and what are we doing? So what has that process been like for you? Plus you have regular life, COVID on top of everything else.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
You know, I look at this and the last year has actually been one of the most fun in my entire career. And I don't say that lightly because it was also one of the most shitty years of my life too. But I say that in that I am always a meeting planner at heart. I mean, I used to manage 40,000 person events and I was the lead planner. And so that, like, when I think about my passion, that's my passion. Like, if you could put me back in charge of an event right now that's large and complex and super difficult, it's like, that's where I get up every day and I thrive. So for me, over the last year, it has been, how do we provide the right set of technology tools for the things that actually matter in the industry? Because when everything fell apart, it was, what's a virtual event? 90s video game? Like, I can't do this. I'm not going to have a job. And I was like, no, we got this. We've got the skills and we might have limited tools, but there's going to be a lot of innovation. So for me, it really has been pushing our team to innovate as fast as possible, to think about those immersive brand experiences, to think about engagement, to think about how we're delivering an event that we can truly measure what the impact is on the business and the impact that it's having on sales and marketing. But, you know, there's a lot of big questions still. I mean, last year it was just reactionary mode. So it was, how do we get as much out as fast as possible to help people with the tools that they need? Now, I think, you know, it's on the tip of everyone's tongue in terms of hybrid. So for me, with my meeting planning, I'm like, okay, you know, I've done hybrid events in that, like Lawrence from Double Dutch, not Double Dutch anymore, sorry, Twine. It's going to take me a while to like switch those up. But, you know, Lawrence said something really fascinating and Untethered. And I was like, it hit me really hard. And it's sort of along the lines of when we had our pre-meeting for Untethered, Liz, and your comment was, why are we acting like hybrid's a new thing? Like, look at the Super Bowl. Like, the Super Bowl's always been hybrid. Like, think about they have an in-person experience. They've got a digital experience. They have people attending when they're not actually physically on the field, but they're, you know, a couple miles away from the field and having to tie all those experiences together. And Lawrence said something similar in that we've always been hybrid attendees. Before the event, 30 days, we'd launch the schedule builder. You'd figure out what sessions you were attending, who you wanted to meet. You had a virtual experience to sort of get the planning process, pre-consume things. And then even on site, we'd go back to our hotel room to do a hands-on lab, or at night, we'd view the sessions that we didn't have a chance to do, or we'd fill out evaluations. And post-event, we consumed all the content afterwards. So you think about, we've always been doing hybrid. We've always been doing virtual. And how now, in this new world of needing human connection in those components, how do we really solve for that? And I think that is really the question for us to ask. So from a technology standpoint, like, we're going to do Untethered, and we're going to do it as a true hybrid event in Portland and in Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it in September. And I'm going to plan it from start to finish. I'm going to put together all of the health protocols. I'm going to put together like the whole run schedule. Like I'm going to be the meeting planner again and share literally step by step what it is that I'm doing, what I'm thinking about, the liability that I'm thinking about, like all of those things, because I think it will really help inform a holistic view of how we need to be thinking about tying those two worlds together, and therefore being able to solve that with technology as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where would people learn about Untethered, the events that you've done already, and then this one that you're talking about for September?
Yeah, untethered.events is the website. We haven't done a very good job of updating it though, and talking about the next version. So this is like the VIP scoop on the Event Hustlers podcast.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be coming out with more information over the next month about what it is that we're planning on doing. You know, a lot of the information that we gathered through Untethered as well, we had 9 different circles. So they were all sort of grouped in different topic areas around an event. And then we had 4 brainstorming sessions of 90 minutes. And so we're creating, sorry guys,
Okay.
we're creating idea books behind each one of those circles. What could we potentially do? What could we do short term? What could we do long term? How do we need to think about measuring these things? And so over the next couple of months, we're going to be creating all of these idea books, which are basically white papers and ideas. And then we're going to be testing those in the fall and actually putting a playbook together that says, if you want to try to do this, these are the things to do. These are the things not to do. This is how we measured it. Here's the additional questions that we have. Because I think, you know, so much of our conversation is about value right now. How do we bring sponsors and exhibitors value because they're not seeing it? How do we bring attendees unique differentiated value because there's 9 million events that they can now attend online? Like we really need to think outside of the box and be able to measure accurately to ensure that we can continue to compete with our events. And I use the word compete because they have so many options.
Oh yeah.
You know, as we go into the next 18 months, regardless of whether it's virtual or in person or some element of hybrid.
Yeah, that's it. That data has been so interesting. I think, you know, for a sponsor to see to the person how much time people spent in their booth and how and what they were doing and that transition back to in person, you know, that sponsor conversation. I've been saying, I don't think sponsors were getting as much value as they thought they were in person. It's just now they're looking virtually and saying, oh, shoot, I don't think I'm getting that much value. And it's really going to put event professionals to the fire to figure out, so what are we doing besides putting their logo in a billion places and setting them up a little 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 space? Any thoughts about, you know, the kind of the future of what this means?
So many, because this is like one of the hot buttons right now of what we're trying to solve. Because, you know, I think so many of us, and I am this way too. It's like, I know in person and I want in person. Like I still haven't had my 40th birthday party and I so want to have this damn birthday party. And so I think a lot of us as events professionals, we're like, we want to get back to what we know, what we're successful at. But we have to remember that we have to look at the world and say the travel industry is not recovering. Hotels are not recovering right now. So people won't travel for themselves to go lay on a beach. They're sure not going to travel to a convention center. And even if we think about exhibitors, so now I'm an exhibitor in an event and I'm going to have to pay for all of these people to travel. I have to pay to ship my booth. I'm going to go on an expo floor. Pre-COVID, we could never get anyone to go on the expo floor. So we gave, you know, prizes and tchotchkes and put the bar next to people. Post-COVID, who the hell do you think is going to go up within 6 inches and be like, here, scan my badge? Like that.
Oh, we lost your audio for a second here.
Oh, is it back?
Yep.
Okay. So to me, there's a high risk of saying we're going to go back to in-person and in-person only, because now an exhibitor has increased costs and they're not getting any lead scans because no one is getting close enough to them to actually scan their badge. And like there's limited attendance in person. So you know, when I think about going back in person, and again, I'm an in-person person, so I'm just saying here are the things we need to overcome to really think about this. But if you look at, I can cancel a flight an hour before my flight. I can cancel my hotel same day. And if I get COVID and someone doesn't refund me, it's going to be a PR shitstorm. So we have to be so flexible with our cancellation policies for our events that people could just say, oh, I'm too busy, or I've got this thing going on. And now your in-person attendance, which was already less because the venue can't handle the capacity that it used to,
Yeah.
now you're going to have even less show up because the cancellation policy isn't there. And so your exhibitors are going to be stuck there talking to other exhibitors. And if you don't have a virtual component for them to see the leads be equaling what they had pre-COVID, we're screwed, and people don't see any value. And our exhibitors are oftentimes what pays for the infrastructure for the event to actually happen. And the partner ecosystem in sales is so important to so many customers that we need them to succeed. So I look at this and say, how do we solve this through tech? How do we take a different approach? And so a lot of where our focus is for the next couple of quarters, and it's so exciting, is solving that through technology. So yes, having the in-person elements where, you know, you can use Hubb to do booth selection and to collect all the information, all the resources and all the rest of it. But what about thinking every exhibitors attend because they're looking for leads? So what if we instead could say, hey, senior sponsor that's here, you can come through and filter. You don't get PII, but you can filter through the attendee list. And you can say, I'm interested in executive level directors that have a budget of this, that have been in the industry for this long. And I'm going to tell you the top 100 leads that you need to engage with in the virtual event. Like, right there, instant value, right? And then providing them ways to be able to connect that doesn't violate GDPR or CCPA or any of the rest of the, you know, acronyms that we have to deal with. But it's really what we're doing is turning events into lead machines for exhibitors. And regardless of whether they do that in person or they do that virtually, we need to continue to increase the value. But value is not just sticking them back on a show floor.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think, you know, people have always voted by their dollars. They, you know, put the money down, they show up. But I think, you know, COVID has completely reset everyone's perspective on what's worth it. You know, just as you're describing an exhibitor, there was just a marketing budget there. And it was easy to say, 10 of you go fly and attend this event. And here's your booth that we've had prefabricated and built for a billion things. But now there's all these extra questions. And to your point, there's all these extra reasons and ways to opt out. And if our events are not incredibly interesting and engaging and meaningful and lead generating, we're going to see that it's not going to last very long. I'm hesitant to bring back in person only because if we don't do it well, good luck getting those sponsors back.
Yes. Yeah. For the attendees, right? I mean, if they see it's a good use of time. Yeah. And that's why, you know, when I think about hybrid, my belief is, and as we look at the cost of hybrid too, right? Like I saw Rachel today from Snowball had posted on LinkedIn, and she was doing some webinar, and people were asking, like, what's the number one word that comes up when you think about hybrid? And they had a word cloud, and the biggest word in the word cloud was expensive. And, you know, a lot of meeting planners are like, hooray, I've got my full budget that I had pre-COVID. And I'm like, there's no hooray in that, because now you have to do a virtual experience, an in-person experience, and merge those two together in hybrid in a way that makes sense. And that is very difficult with the same budget that you used to have just for in-person. And then we look at in-person costs that are 3 times what they used to be. And you can't go to an attendee and be like, it used to be $2,000 to attend my tech conference. Now it's $6,000. No one's going to go. So my belief is that we're going to take in person and we're going to make them very curated experiential elements for our top customers, our top prospects, the ones that you want to take to the bar and get drunk with the executives. So you've got tons of, you know, blackmail on them of getting them to buy stuff, and, you know, they want to continue to come back. Like, we're going to really change events into be targeted sales activities, because we're not going to want to invest to have Joe Schmo come that really isn't a buyer, isn't important to our business, but yet the cost for him to attend is so much from the company that we end up backwards in our events, and we're not driving the value that we need. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate this conversation, because we are talking about, I think, a lot of the challenges that event professionals are facing in the future. I think we are both huge believers that technology can really be the bridge for solving a lot of these problems. And it in no way, to your point, takes away in person or the value of that. But those two pieces, I think we've realized, have to work together, and they can work together so well. And I'm so impressed by tech companies like Hubb that are just constantly evolving and changing and making it easier for us to do that. So I think it's a lot of questions that get people really thinking about, you know, oh yeah, what are we going to do? And how are we
Mhm.
proving this value? And yet it's such a valuable information. I see Dahlia is joining us today. Hi,
Hi,
Dahlia. Hashtag Women in Event Tech.
Dahlia.
Such a good conversation. I just always enjoy chatting with you, learning about what you're thinking about, because I know you're at the forefront of really a lot of these changes that we're all going to see impacting our events. I know you are super busy, so we'll let you go catch your flight. But thank you so much for sharing with us. Is there any place you want to send people? I know we mentioned untethered.events, but is
Yeah.
there any place you want people to send to learn more about all this stuff that you're talking about?
Yeah, our Hubb blog, so just hub.me is our website with 2 B's. But there is a ton of information on there. We've got some upcoming webinars, and I know Dahlia is an oftentimes speaker with Hubb and has lots of great perspectives too. So there's a lot on there in terms of our webinar schedule, and we're presenting webinars on all the key takeaways from each of those circles that we had in Untethered. So that would be the best place for resources in terms of the webinars and upcoming discussions, and to stay on top of sort of what we're looking at as we do go into this new world of hybrid, and thinking about the evolving and changing landscape and the merge of tech with events as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Thank you to those of you who are watching live and listening to the podcast recap post event or post podcast. We will be back next Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And Allie, thank you again for sharing all these insights with us. Safe flight, and we
Thank
will
you.
talk very soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It was great to chat today.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.